Welcome to the Career Intelligence Podcast, where we cut through the noise to help you navigate today's changing world of work with confidence. I'm your host, Kathleen Dohoney. If you've ever felt like you're falling behind because everyone else seems to be mastering AI, except you're not alone. The headlines make it sound like AI is transforming job searching overnight, but what's actually happening in the hiring world? Today, I'm joined by recruiting executive and talent strategist Robin Reshwan, who brings a unique perspective from corporate recruiting, career coaching, and talent leadership. Together, we'll separate hype from reality, explore how recruiters are using AI, discuss what job seekers should and shouldn't be doing, and share practical ways to use AI without becoming overwhelmed. Whether you're actively searching for your next opportunity or simply want to future-proof your career, this conversation will leave you with realistic strategies you can start using today. Catching up is a myth, a recruiting executive on AI without the overwhelm. And my guest today is Robin Reshwan. And Robin has a deep background in corporate recruiting and directs the Certified Digital Career Strategist program, training career coaches worldwide. And this is actually how you and I met.
Yes.
And I have really come to deeply value your digital and AI insights. Welcome, Robin.
Great. Thank you, Kathleen. Happy to be here.
So maybe you could start by telling our listeners a little bit about yourself.
Absolutely. So I described my background that my career basically had three phases. Phase one is I started working for large search and staffing, or you might know them as recruiting companies. So I had a chance to work across every type of industry, all across North America, everything from full time employees to contract employees to interim executives. So that really gave me my initial roots in how people get hired and how companies make hires. From there, I moved into the second phase, which was entrepreneurship. And that's when I started CS or career strategy advising. I founded it in 2010. My goal was to still keep doing recruiting or staffing. So I had a search and staffing division, but I also launched a career coaching or career strategy division. I became very interested in how talented professionals who weren't being seen by recruiting companies or weren't on paper the ones jumping out that companies wanted to hire, how could they get ahead and how could be people could be thoughtful and strategic about their career path. So that's really what we focused on there. That's also where I got introduced to the Professional Association of Resume Writers and Career Coaches and launched the Certified Digital Career Strategist program, which was anchored in LinkedIn, but was also about helping career coaches understand the recruiting part of the equation. What do corporate recruiters see and do so that they could help arm their clients to do better in the process? And then coming out of COVID, I realized the last piece I hadn't done is worked inside of a company as that recruiting executive or hiring manager. So about 6 years ago, I moved into industry or corporate. My roles have been head of talent, director of talent management, and then VP of talent, talent management, enablement, and learning. So essentially, I oversee the process of how we attract and hire people to also how do those people grow and develop when we're within a company. And so having had those three angles, I feel like I come to the conversation to talk about what really matters and how can people set themselves up for more success as opposed to getting caught in buzzwords or marketing spin or things that you're kind of inundated with on social media.
Yes, thank you for that. And I think your angles have really helped those of us that have gone through your program as well as others out there trying to untangle what seems to be very overwhelming web
Yes.
of of information and of course of AI. So you had shared the Employee Inc. data, which shows 28% of candidates say they are actually using AI in their job search, which is down slightly from 31% from last year.
So does that number surprise you?
100%. Because just like you, I've gone through a job search, by the way, 3
Mm.
times in the last 6 years. So everything I preach, I also practice, right? So like everybody, you go and log on to LinkedIn, you log on to your social, and you're fed a stream of things about AI this, AI that, and it makes my head spin. And I actually do this for a living. So it's, I believe externally, we've been made to feel like everybody is using AI everywhere. And if you're not using it, forget it. There's so much to learn. So it struck me in that respect. The second piece, and I don't know about you, but I've been hearing more and more of this, especially from, I have young adults. I have 3 kids that are between 18 and 24. They have really mixed feelings about AI. Like they
Yes.
can leverage it like it's nobody's business. And at the same time, they're like, I'm not selling my soul to it. I want to still do things independently. I don't want to only engage where there's AI. So I think we're in this interesting place where I'd like to slow down all the stuff social media wants you to think and go, okay, wait a minute. Where am I really? And what can I do to make this work for me without feeling overwhelmed or feeling defeated because I can't catch up?
Can't catch up. And yes, and I think that is really been a common theme where people are feeling that I'm behind every single day.
Yep. It's deflating, right? You wake up in the morning and
Right.
you're like, oh, shoot, people were doing stuff all night long. And who am I? And what can I bring to the table? And so that humanness is lost. But the good news is, and what the data shows is, no, it's not, right? 1/3 of us using it well. And we'll talk about that. But so much room for growth for everybody.
So what's actually holding people back from using AI in their job search?
Yeah, so I think it's a couple things, and you mentioned a few of them. One, right? It's overwhelm. It feels like it got too far too fast, and we don't even know
Yeah.
like where do you go in. So I think breaking it into smaller pieces is ideal. The second piece is I do think it's a little binary right now. So one of the pieces of the data shows that for the 30 years, the 1 in 3 that are using it, they're using it across their whole job search. And by the way, they're probably also using it in their job. So in other words, they've decided, hey, this is a new normal. Let's be curious about it. Let's embrace it. But for the rest of folks, I think, right, they're still going, okay, where do I go in at this? Another piece is access to tools. So, what the free tools can do is not the same as what paid tools can do. And that's one of the things, even corporations, I lead the AI adoption at the tech company I was at. And so people could do initial research, but connecting it to actually get meaningful things off your desk required more technical mindedness before Claude Cowork came out. So I think there's a group of people that are like, I tried it. It's like research, but I couldn't do anything meaningful. So they may not know that next step. And then I think the third piece, and this is something that came up in that particular report a lot, is lack of trust. I think a lot of people are nervous. So even if they can use it, they're nervous about what is this a gateway to? What am I giving permissions to? And I think that also slows people down because, right, they want to make sure they're making a good decision and not giving up everything and not having control over it in the future.
Yeah, I like the fact that you brought up about the trust because I think people are beginning to push back. It's not just this. Do a survey. Give me a feedback. I can't even go into any platform without having to download an app. And I think people are
Yep.
up to here.
Yep.
So, from a hiring side, what are recruiters and hiring managers actually noticing about the candidates using AI?
Yeah. So it's an interesting time. There is so much, and just going back to employ the survey that we had originally started talking about, they run multiple applicant tracking systems. So they have a good representation in the market of corporate recruiters and job seekers. And employ smart recruiters, gem, I mean, literally all a greenhouse, all of the ATSs. One of the number one things they're pushing to corporate recruiters is how can you tell when you're interviewing a candidate who's a fraud or a bot, right? And that seems so funny if you're not in space. You're like, seriously, a recruiter can't tell whether Kathleen is real or not. But the technology has gotten so good that knowing whether the person I'm talking to is actually real or whether the person I'm talking to actually knows the information that they're answering to me. So that's the first piece is in the corporate recruiting world They're really focused on how do we even in the front end make sure we don't hire someone who's a bad actor or who isn't who they think they are. So kind of that fraud detection piece is huge. And a lot of the recruiting technology is telling recruiters, hey, I can help identify fraud. Even LinkedIn, right? LinkedIn is using more and more methods to say, how can we make sure the candidates you're surfacing are actual real people and not just something fake. So that's a high level preoccupation. The second thing, and you and I've probably talked about this in some of our other CDCS things, is recruiters are carrying rec loads or workloads that are 50% or greater than they were 4 or 5 years ago. And it's only getting worse with AI because the typical company is saying, well, wait a minute, you have all these AI tools. So why would you need 12 people? Couldn't 2 people do it? So it means they need ways to get more done. So you have this, okay, one, I've got all these candidates who a large percentage is probably fake. Two, I've been given a workload that's larger than ever before. And quite frankly, I'm a little bit afraid for losing my job because it's no secret recruiters have been cut in large amounts due to what's going on with the economy. And then the third piece you get is, well, I still have to find really good quality people. Okay, so I'm telling you this because from an empathy standpoint, most recruiters are not as worried about, Kathleen, you were bad for using AI, but rather they're trying to filter, are you really who you are? How can I get through my day? And, how can I make sure I'm finding a good person at the end of the day? Okay, so that's the mindset. So really where I see most recruiters I know who are still people, that's why they're in the work that they're doing, they're looking at AI and saying, how can it help me get more done with less time? And how can it let me spend the human time with people where it counts and offload some of the administrative pieces like scheduling or back and forth sharing of information or helping my hiring managers make decisions without me having to have long conversations with them. So I guess I feel like it's showing up a little differently because a lot of the candidate spin is recruiters are trying to be impersonal and turn you into a number. That's not what I see. Recruiters are trying to survive and find a way to still get great candidates. So they're leveraging AI where it can help them work smarter and insert and be a human at the right times.
And because I think that fact that recruitment has been really hit, as you said, very hard. A lot of these asynchronous videos are being used as screening tools. And if you don't mind, Robin, sharing from the candidate's point of view, a lot of them are really spooked by this, or they're just like, no way, I am not talking to a screen or a bot.
Yeah.
But it's a necessary evil.
It's a necessary, and honestly, right now it gives you an advantage.
Okay.
Because there are people, again, just going back to the survey, one of the things the survey brought up is they're calling the time we're in right now the great pause. Why? Because they're seeing a decline of people actively participating in the job market. Their survey was done across 1,500 people, a mix of employed, unemployed, and asking them how are they feeling about the job market. So there was a noticeable dropout of people saying, I'm not looking because, quite frankly, I'm exhausted, I'm overwhelmed. Is an advantage to the active job seeker. So, knowing that even though the numbers look big, really good candidates who are sitting in a job right now that they can stay in are not engaging at the same levels that they did a year ago or 2 years ago. So, your willingness to try an awkward video, to do an awkward one-way type of initial screening already gets you in the ring where a lot of people won't, right? A bot can't go do that necessarily. Okay, so that's a win. Secondly, and again, the recruiters I know that are creating and using these things, they aren't over indexing on, are you coming across like you're a talk show host? They're indexing on, do you seem sincere? Do you seem like you actually know the answers to these questions? Or am I seeing patterns that make me feel like you're looking it up on the side? What's also beneficial, again, I'll just give you an example. You might have one recruiter covering roles that they've never covered before. So one of the ways they're augmenting their lack of technical knowledge is they use that recording and they share it with the hiring manager. So by being willing to do an asynchronous video, you have a shot. You may actually get in front of a hiring manager to make a decision, as opposed to a recruiter who's trying to decipher, do you fit the check boxes that I have, but I can't actually pursue very deeply because I don't know it technically. So I think it's a win for qualified people. It's not a win if you're not qualified, because the whole idea is the questions are supposed to help get to qualification quickly. So we're not spending a whole lot of time on things like having you talk your way into it with first round recruiter, only to have a hiring manager go, you don't really know at the level I want. So I think there's a win there for people willing to deal with the awkwardness and the fact that it's new and uncomfortable.
And I would say this is for a whole nother topic, but that's really where you need to be very crystal clear on what you're approaching and interviewing for. So
Yes.
having that versus maybe several years ago, I can do it all.
Yeah.
So what do you think one AI habit a job seeker could start this week that would make a real difference?
Yeah. Couple directions, and a lot depends on where, as a job seeker, where do you need help? So, number one, just applying, for example, on LinkedIn, or just applying, for example, on Indeed, is not getting it done for most job seekers. Again, if you're super qualified, people are still reaching out to you, right? Sort of the world is your oyster. But for many of us, the jobs that are available do not match our background on paper, and we're left scratching our head. So the number one thing I would start exploring is, are there other sources of open roles that you haven't thought of that you could be pursuing, where there's less noise and less competition? One of the things I actually have on deck that I want to focus on is, you've probably seen, I get tons of reels of all these different specialty job sites, or you can use AI. And so I want to go through and start going, which ones of these are real, or which one of these are, at the end of the day, someone wants to charge you to do something. But yeah, that would be the first thing. I would also use Claude or ChatGPT and ask about, where do people in your industry, where do they interact online? So, right, are there Slack groups? Are there Reddit forums? Are there industry associations that you're not seeing if you're just relying on LinkedIn? I'd go there first, because, again, if you can get in a company of people that are in the same space as you have a better shot of meaningful connection, and a better shot of uncovering something that's based on the merits of what you know, not based on how flashy or how you're wielding AI. So that's number one. The second thing I would do then is, when you find an opportunity, you go into whatever your generative AI is and you say, review my resume, you upload it, and this job description, and point out for me what a recruiter would look for to determine if I'm a good match. So notice I didn't say AI rewrite my resume for, because I still think, and you've seen it, super messy. They throw in parts of the job description that aren't true. They change any of your personal pieces. So ask it to assess through the lens of a recruiter first. Those are the two first things I'd start with, because it means, one, you might uncover, and you only need one where you can get all the way to the finish line. So you may uncover unique roles that are right for you. And two, you have a good check and balance of, is your resume communicating the right story? And if not, you can go and address that.
So what do you think about even taking that a step further and understanding the particular industry as a whole? So if you are marketing manager and you're looking for similar roles, but really understanding, I wanted to take this into fintech, should that be a prompt that someone could explore to understand how they could align their resume?
Absolutely. So that idea of transferability, which, again, probably for your business and my coaching practice too, that's where the majority of my clients were, right? They were talented professionals going, I'm either in a dead end industry or an industry I'm a little exhausted with. I'd love to make the leap to this other industry that looks interesting or compelling or rich with new problems. 100% you can research there, and that's great. My primary concern with that is, I don't know if you just all of a sudden start throwing those buzzwords into your resume, if you actually get the results you would like. Because, again, most recruiters out that are working today are becoming masters of AI. And so simply seeing a smattering of buzzwords or a resume comes up in some search and they're like, nah, I don't see hands on work specifically in my industry are likely still. So, in other words, if you're only applying to a stranger, the AI generated information, I don't know if it'll get you there. But if you can use it to start having informational conversations and networking, because transferability, the best way to get a job when you're changing industries or the best way to change jobs is either internally in your company. So using what you know about the company to parlay or move you. And that's happened. I've had 3 different roles in the last 6 years that I had no business doing, but because I had demonstrated skills and understanding of the company that they were like, well, you can figure out how to run this. So I would use it to guide, could I go internally? And where is there some transferability? Or can I start having conversations? So someone who already knows me and respects me could go, yeah, I think you could try that. So, because again, with AI, the great thing about it is companies internally are going, this is showing up in all different ways, and we're being asked to rethink everything. So, it is a good time to make jumps into new and unexpected ways. But I wouldn't bank on it for communicating to a stranger who's still going to try to look for, wait, I want evidence that you've done this in this role in this kind of company, because that's just a safer approach.
Which brings me to my next question, exactly what you're talking about, really the misuse and the overuse of AI in ways that backfire. Because one thing that you said, people copy, paste, and send off, and there's no street cred to what they're talking about. Maybe you can kind of elaborate a little bit more about the overuse or misuse.
Yeah. Well, and I'll use the example. I do a decent amount of work with, or I see a lot of college students and new to career professionals. And one of the things I've always appreciated is folks that can be comfortable with what they don't know, but can also show you, right? They've got a framework or a way that they're thinking about something without trying to take on the persona of an expert in that space. And I'll give you an example, like you'll sometimes hear people misuse industry terms or misuse big words. And you're like, man, I wish you would have just stuck with what you know and show me how you're thinking about things. But when you try to use things that are outside of your grasp, it quickly shows how you're actually not that industry expert. Okay, so what do I mean with that? So use AI, right? People go read something on AI and then they're like, all right, I'm all ready to talk shop with someone. Have humility around that, right? Be able to represent my research is showing me, or I'm learning about, or I'm super fascinated or curious about, but adopting it as if it's now your expertise when someone starts to poke holes and they can clearly see that you have you don't know it the way you do, right? As soon as you lose trust or respect in a conversation or an interview, you don't come back from that. And so I would much rather have someone say, I'm researching and I'm learning about, and then someone who is pretending that they know something at a certain level. So that I think is first piece is, and just like I would always tell people, write nothing on your resume that you're not willing to answer a question about comfortably. Because by the way, you and I could both, let's say we both took a French course and I put French on my resume and you put French on your resume. And in an interview, someone says, hey, Robin, I saw you French on there. And then I start going and saying, well, yes, I can speak a little French and blah, blah, blah. And you say, I took a course in French. I did it because I'm interested in the space and I love the similarities to Spanish and this, that, and the other. Your answer is going to make someone trust you. My answer when someone starts to speak to me in French is going to fall apart. So it's all about don't use it to have false bravado. Use it to show your appetite for learning, your curiosity, but also put it in the context. The other piece I was going to say is, again, a big topic in recruiting communities is what questions can I ask that help me poke holes in someone who has superficial knowledge? And so one of the questions is asking someone about a failure within an industry term. AI doesn't teach you about a failure. Like you have to feel that pain. And I'm looking for you to go, oh, yeah, right. I tried to, for example, one of the things we've done with AI is we build learning content. And so in the beginning part, I'm using Claude to help to create a certain type of file that can be read by our LMS. Well, if I had just did that superficially, one, I wouldn't know the type of file. Two, I wouldn't know Yeah, when I tried to do it initially, what were some of the limitations? So if you asked me about how I did it, I could have done that. I could have read off script. But if you asked me about what didn't work, I'd really have to think. So just know that the recruiting community is trying to get smart about it. Again, not because we want to gotcha, but because recruiters are safeguards to make sure that the right people with the right talent get into the right roles. And so accurately representing your knowledge is important. And then one last thing, not to go too long on this, and we mentioned this earlier, do not let it go write something for you and just pass that off as yours. I give my AIs instructions. There's all sorts of things I do to make it respond like me, and yet I still have to go back and I find things that I change. And so, because at the end of the day, it is not me. And by the way, this comes up in work too, where you have customers saying, I want to know what role AI played in this report, what role AI played in your pitch to me. So I think all of us now have to be comfortable saying, I used it as a thought partner, I used it to organize my ideas, I used it to fact check, whatever it might be. Learn to be specific and genuine about it, because we all should not trust that, oh, I just put it in Gemini and voila, I'm going to send it to you. It will not be as good as if you were in the middle and actually went and reread everything.
Yes. So what I'm hearing from you too is the authenticity is super important, and it's really a partner.
100%. I mean, I know everybody uses it different ways.
Right.
For me, I'm on it all day long, but I use it really, Kathleen, I think, and this might be one of those like no big deal thoughts, but to me, it's also a huge thought. It is only as good as I am organized and clear in what I'm trying to do. So, if anything, the biggest shock for me has been using AI as a thought partner is uncovering all the areas where I'm like, one, I need to have a better idea of what I'm trying to accomplish. Two, I need to have a way of measuring success. Three, I need to have a way do I want it to work together. Four, if I'm super organized, I can create documents that have that. So no matter what AI tool, I can say, this is how I always judge an idea, or this is how I always like to project manage. So I like it from the standpoint of it's helping me. I always admired super organized people that had that clarity and accountability. And I feel like AI works in my world the best when I have that. And so it's helping me be more clear about what am I trying to accomplish and how will I know what does success look like and not. That to me has been the biggest aha about it. And then it lets me use it as a partner much more effortlessly, so I don't have to rebuild that every time I start a new project.
So to circle back a little bit, in the beginning, we talked about there were not as many people using AI as we thought. So
Yes.
just bear with me on this. The data shows a generational split. So boomers and Gen X worry most about companies over relying on AI, while the millennials and Gen Z worry less about that, but are more likely to believe they've been auto rejected by one. So what do you make of that with these different generational thoughts?
Yeah, of course, some is expected, both from if we didn't grow up with AI, there might be hesitancy, but also I think when we don't know something natively, it's very tempting to want to go. It's not really going to go anywhere because it takes off the burden of having to learn it. And you and I were talking before we even started talking about like one of the challenges as you're on this earth longer is we all like to make things more comfortable for us. It uses less energy. It feels a lot better. And so, right, somebody just threw a big wrench in the system. And sooner have we gotten comfortable with all the SaaS tools with wait, and now I have to have AI, right? So on paper, it makes sense. What that also means to me that is if you're in some of these different generational patterns, challenge yourself to say, okay, because it's supposed to be getting easier and easier. So challenge yourself to say, well, where can it make sense for me? At least just so I know about it. So I'm not the person standing in the corner of the room saying, no, the bots are coming to get us. The moment you say that, from a hiring standpoint, unfortunately, I'm not moving forward with you because you're not showing a growth mindset of, I'm
Right.
happy if you want to say, well, I have some serious concerns. And by the way, at an executive level, they have serious concerns because we don't know all the ways of using it. But, right, here's how I'm learning about it. Here's how I'm integrating it. Now, on the younger side, I think there's awareness of it's everywhere. I think in some cases there's less of a worry about personal privacy and the implications. But I've also seen a strong mix of just because it's there, we shouldn't be using it. I've heard more younger people bringing up the concern about water waste, the
Right.
concern about it's what do they use the example of, like, you might you might bring in a big mallet when you just needed like a little tap on something. It's overkill for a lot. So I've heard younger people have more ethical concerns, environmental concerns, and also going, I don't want to just get lost in everything is AI. I think in general, all of us share a healthy skepticism about it, and that's good. And so anyway, that's a little bit about, how some of that data came across to me.
You and I both do coaching. So, what about people who may not be job hunting right now? How should they be using AI to grow or protect their career?
Yeah. So one thing I saw recently that I found kind of interesting was an article on how generative AI is identifying experts and points of view. So, meaning that in this particular article, what they were pushing on is, for example, let's say you and I have specific things that we think are important in the job search process. So, if we're creating content on a big platform like LinkedIn, we don't have to create it every day. We don't have to get a million reactions. But if we're showing that we have genuine thought, subject matter expertise, and thought leadership on an angle on LinkedIn, even if we're not job searching, if we're doing that a little more often than we did before, we might actually become a credible source for generative AI when someone asks a question around, well, what's the best way to write my resume? It may start to use your opinion or my opinion because we're building a track record. So that's one. So in a world that is global, individuals that do have a point of view, if they get it out there in a somewhat repeat fashion on a credible platform, they have a chance of getting cemented in some of these generative AIs as a go-to person or a place that it looks at to kind of inform the answer it's going to give. Okay, so that I find kind of interesting. The second piece is I would definitely set it up to run and synthesize information or media that appeals to you. So again, I'm very interested, just like you, what's going on in the job market, what's happening with people as they're thinking about their careers, what's the latest research and data around it. And it is exhausting because you can't do it just by starting at the top of your LinkedIn feed and running down. You need to find folks that are credible. You need to find folks that have interesting data, folks that might represent the client base that you're servicing, right? So what someone puts out and says, oh, I changed my resume and I got 17 million offers and they're 22 is very different than how that'll play out with someone who's like a director level and above type of thing. So I think you can certainly leverage AI to help to curate information that is meaningful for you. And I think also using it a lot, project management, because again, I bring that up a lot because I go, oh, I've got these ideas, but how do I break it into actionable things so it's not just an idea, but it actually becomes something I can do? AI can be excellent in saying, okay, look, I've got, like I said, one of the things I want to tackle is, okay, let's go look at all these crazy sites safely and start to be able to give out a scorecard of this one was safe, this one didn't seem beneficial, so on and so forth. So I could take something like that and say, help me break this into a project that I could do in 2 hours a week and what would be meaningful and how can I track it? And it can help me that way. So I think, again, you don't have to be looking for a job to start saying, how can this help me be the best business professional or be the most productive as possible? We used to always say when I was in recruiting, because people got promoted really quickly, you earn the right to the promotion by getting so efficient at your current job that you made room to take on more. And so I look at AI that way, right? Can you help me become more efficient, more productive so that I open up room to take on other things of interest and value? And that can help you go further in your career.
Yeah, and I like the idea of this is also helping you become innovative, strategic, especially if you're in your career looking to move forward, or maybe just being the best that you can be, as you said, at your role. And let's be honest, companies are looking for their employees to help them move this forward.
Yes. Like I said, I saw it because I was firsthand involved with when we ran pilots to determine what software, which AI partner we would have, when we started to roll it out, certain contests and incentives, and then to what we'd say is adoption. So, how do you make it apply across the board? And the people that came up in the conversations were the ones going, not just, okay, I use it, but how can I help our function be better and safer? How can I inform how our company deals with this? How our company deal with this become a competitive advantage to our customers? How can I think about how our customers are dealing with it and what that might have to do with our company? Those don't require a certain job title or level. And to me, it's a huge meritocracy that comes from genuine curiosity, not being afraid of it, getting out and exploring, talking to people, seeing individuals make outsized impact. Because usually at the end of the day, it's not the executives that are in there playing with this.
Mhm, right.
It's folks in their everyday work. So you really have a chance to be a conversational topic in a good way if you're boldly trying to explore and see how this could add value, not just to you, but to your team, but to your end users and your customers as well.
So this has been a really great conversation, Robin, with a lot of ideas. What would be one last piece of advice for someone who feels behind on AI?
Yeah. So first thing, and I heard this from a career coach who we were talking about, or she was an executive coach. We were talking about when you go into a new role, and when you first go into a new role, you're like, I'm behind. Drop that thinking right away. Because quite frankly, even people doing it 2 years ago, it's changed so much that the stuff that might have served them then, you could come in today and be a novice and have avoided all of that kind of bumping around, right? So I'd say that's the first thing. Take off the emotional baggage of I'm behind, because that in of itself already makes you go, oh my God, this is so heavy. And just find one thing that you can try exploring with. You and I are talking a little bit about like having vacations or trips, right? So whether it's okay, I want to plan a trip, or whether it's you want to analyze something, or whether I got friends, they took a picture of their kitchen and said, help me determine what I want to remodel in the order that I want to do it in, right? Just play in a safe space just to start to get a sense of capabilities. That would be the number one thing, because if you can do that, it's sort of like looking at a room of people all talking and having fun, and so it's easy to just go, "I'm not going in that room." Just get in the room. Whether you talk to the waiter carrying around the food or the bartender or someone who's there, you got in the room, and I can guarantee you if you got in the room, you'll be better off than had you not come in at all. And so that would be it, right? Just find one thing you can play with to go, "Okay, now I actually have a real opinion." And chances are, I haven't met anyone yet that's like, I've tried AI and I hate it. I'm never using it again. I haven't. Now, you may not want to give your whole life over to it, and that's awesome. But try something so that it's actually real to you, and you're starting to build that moving forward.
What a great way to kind of just dip your toe, because even for those who've not used it, I even the other day was making a recipe and I said, what's a substitution for vegetable oil? What could I use and what measurements? And
Yes.
Greek yogurt. So perfect. But I use AI all the time, but I think having that feeling of trust will help someone, oh, I can do this now and get the confidence.
Yeah. Because I realize there are jobs out there that do not use it, but I think it's just like someone saying, I don't like technology. There is no business that does not use technology, right? So whether it's your point of sale or your diagnostic tools or your social media, it's the same thing in terms of the computational power of generative AI. It will be used in every industry at one point or another. So unfortunately, I think going, can I just skip this? I I don't think it's going to serve you. Doesn't mean you have to use it, doesn't mean you have to like pour your life into it, but at least figure out a little bit about it. I think it's a good thing, right? It takes the power and the mystery away from it.
Robin, thank you so much. I am going to list your contact information in the show notes, and I really appreciate your valuable insight.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it, Kathleen. And you know what's great, and I'm glad you and I got to talk some more. Is as a career coach and as career coaches, I think the more we can talk about how this is showing up for us, the more information we have that we can use to help our job seekers. So, I look forward to seeing you in our, CDCS insights meetings or any of the other areas where I get a chance to hear and see what you're seeing, and, same difference in terms of sharing what I exposed to.
I want to thank Robin so much for sharing her expertise and helping us bring some perspective to a topic that often feels overwhelming. One of my biggest takeaways is that you don't have to master every new AI tool to stay competitive. Start small, stay curious, and use AI as a thought partner, not as a replacement for your experience, judgment, or authentic voice. And that's what ultimately builds trust with employers. If you'd like to connect with Robin, you'll find her contact information in the show notes. If you're ready to take the next step in your career journey, I'm here to help. Through personalized coaching, I own Celtic Career Pros, and I support professionals in meeting their goals. You will find my contact information in the show notes. Thank you so much for listening. We will be back soon with another episode. In the meantime, stay curious, keep learning, and keep building your career intelligence.